A young girl rescued a trembling cat on her way home from school. She had no idea the little creature she had compassion for was about to change her life. The cat belonged to none other than Taylor Swift, and what started as a simple act of kindness became the beginning of a life-changing friendship. And by the time the story unfolded, the young girl wouldn't just return a beloved pet, she'd find herself on a stage she never dreamed of. Have you ever had a moment where kindness led to something life-changing? What would you do if a stray cat led Taylor Swift to your front door? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Stay tuned so you can witness how one rescued cat rewrote a young girl's destiny. The sidewalk glittered with the last dustings of spring pollen, golden under her worn-out sneakers. Liz and Carlos trudged forward, her backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder, earbuds nestled securely in her ears. The music flowed into her like oxygen, smooth piano notes stitched with aching vocals. She walked in rhythm, letting the sound cradle her thoughts, dull the sharp edges of the day. She let out a sigh. It was a rough day for her. Mr. Lawson had called her out in chemistry class again for not raising her hand, even though she had the right answer. Speaking in front of the class made her heart do strange things, racing, shrinking, choking her from the inside. So, instead of raising a hand, she'd look down, hiding behind her curtain of dark curls as the class snickered. During lunch, she tried to escape to her usual refuge, the rear of the school library, tucked between dusty shelves no one cared to explore. But this time, Mrs. Givens had frowned at the sandwich in her hand. And after school, a group of girls whispered and laughed as she passed, mocking her second-hand sneakers and the way she always walked alone. It wasn't new, but it still had a way of hurting her. Still, Lizanne had learned to retreat inward, into the music her father had once filled her life with. "Every note is a world," he used to say, ruffling her hair. "And you, my songbird, get to live in all of them." She smiled faintly at the memory, her fingers unconsciously tapping the rhythm on the side of her thigh. She had fallen in love with music because of him. Not the polished, studio-perfect kind, but the raw, earthy sounds he'd played in the living room with nothing but a guitar, a harmonica, and his soul. She was 5 the first time he taught her how to feel a song rather than just hear it. As she rounded the corner of their street that led to her apartment complex, just past a faded building painted in flaking green and cream with crumbling sidewalk, a flickering lamppost, and the smell of Mrs. Elroy's cooking wafting from across the street, something small darted into the corner of her eye. Lizanne stopped in her tracks. Beneath a skinny rosebush, leaves twitching nervously, sat a cat. Not just any cat, a Scottish fold. Its silvery grey coat sleek and glistening even in the dying light, its ears adorably bent forward, eyes wide and frightened like twin moons. Lizanne knelt slowly. "Hey there, little fluff." She pulled her earbuds out, crouching low. "You look like you took a wrong turn at a princess party." Around its neck was a collar, bright pink, satin, and encrusted with tiny rhinestones. A heart-shaped tag gleamed beneath its chin. She held out a hand. "It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you." The cat blinked once. Then, slowly, it took a cautious step forward and nudged her palm. It let out a quiet mew, almost a plea. Lizanne glanced down the street. No one seemed to be looking for a cat. "Well," she murmured, wrapping her arms gently around the creature, "I know how it feels." Lizanne's apartment was on the second floor of a tired-looking building, chipped paint and old stairs creaking under her weight. Warm light spilled across the scuffed wooden floors. "Mom?" she called as she stepped inside. The scent of old books and faint lavender always greeted her like an old friend, and the air carried the faint scent of rosemary and fried onions, her mum's signature after-work meal. "In the kitchen," her mum called back, voice tired but warm. "I brought company," Lizanne said softly as she closed the door with her foot, the cat wrapped gently in her arms. Her mother stepped out of the kitchen, her hair tied back in a messy bun, eyes tired but kind. Her mum blinked, then let out a breathy laugh. "Of course you did." They both knew the truth behind the joke. If it needed help, Lizanne would bring it home, whether it was a stray cat, a broken cassette tape, or someone's torn poetry left in the trash. Just for the night. It was scared and alone. Lizanne's voice dropped, and her mother understood more than the words said. She nodded with a small smile. "Well, set her up in your room. Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. Lizen's room was barely 10 feet wide, and yet it held a universe. Stacks of old books lined the walls, mysteries, fantasy novels, and poetry anthologies. Most of them were borrowed, some bought from second-hand shops. Torn sheet music was pinned like wallpaper, faded notes dancing across the pages. A tiny desk sat in the corner, more of a storage space than a workspace. But on the far side, resting beneath the window, was the most precious thing she owned: her father's broken acoustic guitar. The strings had long since dulled. One was missing entirely, but Lizen never let it gather dust. And ever since her father disappeared, lost to a shipwreck that never gave back his body, only the haunting news report and a closed casket funeral, music had been her way of keeping him alive. The cat curled up at the foot of her bed, purring softly. Lizen picked up the guitar, brushing her fingers along the strings. A gentle hum rose, not perfect, but real. The wood of the guitar was scratched, a crack ran along the soundboard, and one of the tuning pegs had snapped off years ago. It barely made a sound, but she didn't need it to. Her voice was low, soft, trembling at first, but carried the melody. She began to sing, softly, her eyes closed. She saw her father's grin, the way he danced around the living room with a frying pan microphone, how he once played lullabies until she fell asleep, whispering, "You're made of stardust and sound waves, kiddo." Each word wrapped around her heart, pulling at threads she kept hidden all day long. Tears slipped down her cheek without warning, but she kept singing. The cat stretched, hopped onto the windowsill, and stared out as if keeping watch, a moment of quiet solidarity. Lizen exhaled. "I think I'll call you Melody," she whispered to the cat. The feline flicked its tail in approval. She lost her father to the sea, but not the music he left behind. Hit the like button if music has ever helped you through hard times. The days that followed felt like one long walk uphill. Lizen and her mother had done everything they could to find the Scottish Fold's owner. They printed flyers with Melody's picture that Lizen had taken on her old phone, while the cat sat regally on her windowsill, sunlight casting a soft halo around her silver fur. The caption read, "Found, lovingly pampered Scottish Fold, pink collar, missing you?" They taped them to lampposts, bus stops, community boards, and slipped copies into local cafes. Her mum had even posted on every neighborhood Facebook group and pet rescue page she could find. Days passed. No one called. Until Saturday. The afternoon sun was painting gold streaks on their living room walls when the doorbell rang. Lizen, wearing pajama pants and a faded Nirvana tee, shuffled over, expecting the mailman or a neighbor asking about the noise from upstairs again. She pulled open the door lazily and then froze. There stood Taylor Swift. Yes, the Taylor Swift. Dressed casually in a soft blue sweater and high-waisted jeans, her hair in a loose braid over one shoulder, and a gentle, unmistakable smile on her face. "Hi," Taylor said, her voice warm, soft. "You must be Lizen." Lizen's mouth opened. No sound came out. She blinked. Once, twice. Still, nothing came out. Taylor gave a small laugh. "You found my cat." Still, silence. Lizen could feel the scream welling up in her chest, but managed only a strangled whisper. "Me, Melody." Her name's Charmer, but Melody works too. It's actually adorable. Taylor Swift responded almost immediately. Lizen just stood there, lips parting again, her brain doing somersaults trying to process reality. Was this a prank? A hallucination? Was she dreaming inside a dream? Behind her, a voice called out, "Sweetheart, who's at the—" Her mother's footsteps padded over, and then she, too, came to a halt behind her daughter. Her jaw dropped. "Wait. Oh my God." Taylor gave a shy, almost apologetic smile. "Hi. I'm sorry to drop in like this. I hope I'm not intruding." "Intruding? You're Taylor freaking Swift," Lizen's mum muttered before catching herself. "I mean, please, come in. Come in." The living room suddenly felt too small, too humble, too everything. The cushions weren't fluffed, the dishes weren't put away, but Taylor didn't seem to notice. She was too busy holding Melody Charmer that ran to her just as it heard her voice in her arms, stroking her fur, tears shimmering faintly in her eyes. The cat was never just a stray, it was the thread tying two distant worlds together. "I was in town visiting someone," she explained, "and when I saw the flyer online, your mum's post, I hopped in a car and came straight here. She's been sleeping on my bed all week. Lizen finally managed to say. "I think she liked it here." Taylor gave a warm and genuine gaze. "She has good taste." Lizen was far from the present, still starstruck. "I hope it's okay," Taylor added, "but I'd love to talk a bit, if you're up for it." "Yeah," Lizen stammered. "Of course. Ummy room is this way." Her mum, now bustling into kitchen mode, called after her, "I'll make some tea, or lemonade, or anything really." Lizen's room felt even tinier with Taylor Swift in it. She tried to clear space on the bed, moving aside notebooks and stray guitar picks. Taylor sat gently, still holding the purring cat on her lap. "This is cozy," she said with a smile. "I miss rooms like this." "You do?" Lizen asked, skeptical. "Absolutely. Rooms full of books and barely working instruments. That's where all the songs begin." Taylor's eyes traveled across the room until they landed on the guitar by the window. She tilted her head. "You play?" "Used to," Lisanne said softly. Taylor got up and knelt beside it, running her fingers across the worn wood, reverent. "Who did this belong to?" "My dad," Lizen whispered. "He was everything. Musician, dreamer. He died at sea 3 years ago. Shipwreck." The room was silent for a beat. Then Taylor looked up at her, her expression tender. "I'm so sorry, Lizen. I didn't want to forget him, so I write songs, little ones, and sometimes I sing them when no one's listening." Taylor sat back down. "Can I hear one?" Lizen froze. "I don't know if I can. I've never played it in front of anyone before." Taylor's voice softened. "No pressure, but I think it would mean a lot to you, and to him." This moment reminds us that sometimes healing begins when you let someone in. Lizen picked up the guitar. Her fingers trembled as she adjusted the cracked strap over her shoulder. She tested the strings. They were out of tune, but she knew how to coax music from them anyway. She began to strum, slowly. The notes were uneven, but they carried emotion, honest and raw. Then her voice joined, clear, low, trembling with memory as she began to sing. Taylor sat completely still, her eyes glistening. Melody purred in her lap, unmoving. When the final chord faded into the hush of the room, Taylor exhaled as though she'd been holding her breath the entire time. "That was beautiful," she said, voice thick with emotion. "Don't stop writing, Lizen. You have something real, something honest." Lizen blinked, her own heart aching in a new way, gentler, warmer. "I just wanted him to hear it," she murmured. "I think he did," Taylor said. "I think he hears you every time. Grief may drown us, but music teaches us how to breathe again." Taylor thought she was just getting her cat back. Instead, she found a voice that deserved to be heard. Subscribe if you think talent can come from the most unexpected places. After the haunting melody drifted into silence, something unspoken passed between Taylor Swift, pop legend and songwriter, and Lizen Carlos, a quiet 15-year-old who strummed out her grief in a room too small for her dreams. Taylor stayed for dinner. Lizen's mother, nervous but composed, whipped up her best dish, lemon chicken with rice and honeyed carrots. The dining table, usually quiet, hummed with laughter, shared memories, and gentle encouragement. "This was honestly the best surprise I've had in a long time," Taylor said, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. "Your home feels real, like it's filled with things that matter." Before she left, Taylor took the broken acoustic guitar with her for repairs. Then she turned to Lizen at the door and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Promise me something." Lizen looked up. "Don't stop writing, and don't stop singing. I see something in you, something raw and true. I'll be back." Days later, true to her word, Taylor returned. It was a Thursday afternoon. The school day had been long, and Lizen had just kicked off her sneakers when the doorbell rang. She opened it and gasped. There stood Taylor again, her car parked discreetly out front, her arms full, a brand new acoustic guitar with a pearl inlay, a portable keyboard in sleek black, a microphone, a small amp, and tucked under her arm, a neatly wrapped parcel. "I thought your space could use some extra magic," Taylor grinned as she stepped inside. "But this is too much," Lisanne stammered. "I don't know what to say." Taylor handed her the parcel. "Then don't say anything yet, just open it." Inside was her father's guitar, but it looked new. The cracks were sealed, the strings gleamed, and the wood had been restored, still familiar, still scarred, but whole again. A girl with a broken guitar, a dream almost forgotten. But Taylor Swift wasn't about to let it die. Share this story to inspire someone whose dream needs a second chance. "I had it professionally repaired," Taylor said softly. "This should always be with you." Lizen's eyes welled. "Thank you," she whispered. "You didn't have to," Taylor smiled. "I wanted to. And one more thing, there's an audition next month, a youth performance showcase. I sent in a clip of your song. They want to see you live." When grief turns into purpose and talent meets opportunity, the world begins to listen. Taylor arranged for a local vocal coach, someone gentle and nurturing, who came twice a week. They worked on control, tone, storytelling, nursing the emotion that already pulsed through Lizen's voice. Her music teacher at school, usually indifferent, suddenly took notice when Lizen sang during assembly. Her first competition came 2 weeks later, a local school talent show. Nervous, she clutched her father's repaired guitar backstage. The crowd blurred, the lights burned, but when she sang, it was as if the world shrank to her and the strings. She won second place. Then came another contest, and another. A small YouTube video of her performance, uploaded by a classmate, began to gain views. Comments poured in. At night, she still strummed the old guitar, now reborn, in the same corner by her window. Only now, her melodies carried something more than sorrow. They carried hope and the echo of a promise, "I'll be back." Lizen's quiet world grew louder, and the girl who once sang in secret began to sing for the world. Time didn't mend the loss, but it softened the ache. In the quiet days that followed her growing recognition, Lizen and her mother quietly resumed a shared mission to find traces of the man they'd loved and lost. It wasn't about miracles or closure, it was about remembering. Together, they tracked down his old bandmates, one by one. There was Marco, the soft-spoken pianist who now taught jazz in a quiet coastal town. And Raina, the drummer with silver in her hair, who still wore leather boots and spoke of Lizen's father like he'd just stepped out of the room. "We were dreamers," Raina said one night over coffee. "But your dad? He believed music like it could save the world." Lizen recorded every story, every song snippet hummed from memory, every laugh that ended in silence. Her father's legacy became more than a ghost. It became a mosaic, rich with color, sound, and soul. One evening, Taylor Swift returned, not in stardom's sparkle, but in gentle friendship. She sat at their now slightly bigger dining table, holding the newest surprise, a scholarship fund in Lizen's father's name. "For young artists with big hearts and old souls," Taylor said, sliding the certificate across the table. "Your story deserves to keep echoing." Taylor Swift stayed involved in Lizen's life, through school, through each competition, through the late-night phone calls before big performances. And never once did she treat Lizen as anything less than an equal voice in the world of music. Sometimes, the people who believe in you arrive long after you stop believing in yourself. Then came the time for Lizen to get on with her first concert performance. The city concert hall pulsed with anticipation. It was a warm spring night, years after a scared girl found a cat with a pink collar on her street. Backstage, Lizen clutched her father's old guitar, now polished, strings new, frets worn by love. Her mother was in the front row, teary-eyed but proud. Taylor sat beside her, nodding to the rhythm of the tuning checks. And then the lights dimmed. Her name was called. She stepped onto the stagino, the same girl from the small apartment. Not the scared teen with grief in her throat, but a young woman, steady in her stance, her voice an echo of the father she had lost and the woman she had become. The spotlight kissed her skin. The crowd held its breath. She closed her eyes after she got on stage, strummed the first chord, and then she sang, "I carry you in every note, in every breeze, in every sky that sings me home." It was the song she wrote for her father, born in grief, now sung in grace. As Lizen struck the final rhythm on her instrument, the hall resonated with thunderous applause, a wave of appreciation washing over her. Yet, in that moment, she felt no need for the accolades. Instead, she gazed up at the ceiling, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, and softly whispered, "We made it, Dad." A profound connection lingered in the air, reminding her that some songs never truly end, they merely transform, echoing differently through each chapter of life. Liz and Carlos became more than a singer. She became a symbol, Taylor Swift's protege. A symbol of quiet resilience. The memory turned into melody, and the unexpected paths that circle us gently back to where we began, but stronger. Her voice, once a whisper, became an anthem, and the girl who once sang for one became the girl the world would one day sing about. The music never left her, and now it never would. Some stories begin with a question, others with a loss, but the rarest kind begin with a stray cat, a doorbell, and a second chance. In a world full of noise, Lizanne chose music. Not to escape, but to remember, to heal, to hope. And as her voice grew stronger, so did the echo of the man who once believed in harmony, and the girl who now carried that legacy forward. She started with rescuing a lost cat. Now she's chasing the stars with Taylor Swift by her side, guiding her through all she needs to hold on to her father's legacy. Watch our next story to meet another everyday hero whose life was changed forever.